Coming up today on Locked On Texas Tech, we get set for the home finale for Grant McCasland and the Red Raiders. And does movement recently in ACC country signal at long last the end of rampant realignment?
You are Locked On Texas Tech, your daily podcast on the Texas Tech Red Raiders. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Great to be with you again on Locked On Texas Tech on the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day, always free and available on YouTube or anywhere you get podcasts. And thanks as always for making us your first listen. Today's episode brought to you by the all-new 2025 Nissan Armada. Stay with us for the Armada Team of the Week later in the episode. With the only Chris Level, I'm Casey Cowan. Chris, great to be back with you and back on another game day. We're running thin on these sons of guns, at least those that are guaranteed at this point in the year. As you pointed out on a previous episode, only 4 guaranteed as you roll into the conference tournament and NCAA tournament past these final 2 regular season ball games. But it's Colorado coming up for the final time at United Supermarkets Arena. The Buffaloes fitting the description of the final home victim, at least. And then you will be on the road to wrap up the regular season in Tempe, Arizona, against the Sun Devils of Arizona State. So we'll talk a lot of hoops on today's episode. We'll get to it being basically all about the Red Raiders as you are facing a team that is going nowhere fast as far as the postseason is concerned. So a whole lot of self-starting going to be needed for this one. And we'll also step outside of the hoops picture, and we'll get into more of a national picture, but of course we'll localize it as to how it impacts the Big 12, how it impacts Texas Tech. There's some significant movement and things happening this week with the ACC that could actually possibly, could it be so, bury realignment, one of our favorite, most treasured, close to our heart topics that never would die, but will it soon? We'll get into that in just a moment. First, Chris, it's the Buffaloes and the Red Raiders from United Supermarkets Arena, man. And it's kind of a tricky position. I don't want to act or like make too much out of it, but it's sort of a tricky position for a head coach and a staff to deal with a season like you're having, but then an opponent like you got coming into your building tonight. So much going on in March, and we're looking ahead to big dancing and all those types of things, but you got to keep taking care of business first against Colorado and Lubbock.
Yeah, these are the kind of games that can drive a coach crazy because – not a lot to gain from it ultimately, and it would probably hurt all of your metrics and everything by just simply playing it. And that's what sucks. But if you don't get a result, it will really wreck things. But you're trying to keep your kids motivated, and that's why I kind of pointed to that last game versus Arizona State that you'll face on Saturday, and the struggles with that team previously. But you look at this Colorado team that'll come in here tonight, and first of all, so my first memories of Colorado basketball was, I think it was January of 1997. They rolled into Lubbock on a snowy Saturday night, and Chauncey Billups beat you at the buzzer, and you were still pretty good at that time before kind of things went off the rails a little bit for your program with NCAA stuff and whatever it was.
Sticking their nose where it doesn't belong.
Grayson Averill and all those shenanigans and everything that you ultimately didn't really recover from. And then Bob Knight showed up and all that. But yeah, Colorado, I think you last played them in 2011 when they were, still in the Big 12, and then they obviously moved to the Pac-12. Tad Boyle was the coach then, which is crazy because he's still the coach. Yeah. Again, 2011. This is his 15th season. And what people may not realize about Colorado is, because I don't have a ton of walking around knowledge of Buffalo basketball, right? I think Nuggets, Nikolai Jokic, that whole deal, right?
The guy that tried to fight Pal Storozinski, if I have the right name, was it Harrison?
Yes, David Harrison, maybe.
That was a Buffalo basketball.
Yeah,
memory.
He was a big old boy. Yeah, Ricardo Patton used to be their head coach. So
we just emptied our bucket. That's it.
but. This is a Colorado team. Well, you look up right now and say last place, man, they must have been struggling a long time. No, not at all. In fact, they played longer than you did last year.
Yep.
They had 3 dudes drafted in the NBA draft, 2 of which were in the first round. 2. I mean, there's not many times, if ever, that you can really say that about Texas Tech basketball in your history. They had 3 guys picked, 2 of them in the first round. One of them was a lottery pick. Okay, and the way Tad Boyle, he's kind of an old school, like we're going to be organic here. We're going to recruit freshmen and develop and all those things. I think there's one Power 4 transfer on their team from Washington State, but it just hasn't worked. And it's not, I mean, again, they're having to switch leagues. They were 3rd in the Pac-12 last year. Then you're transitioning into the Big 12, which is better. Because they were 3rd in the Pac-12 last year, and they ultimately won, I think, 26 games on the season. But they, 3rd in the Pac-12, and it got them a bid to the first 4 in Dayton. So they had to beat Boise just to kind of get into the tournament, and then they go beat Florida in that 10-7 game, and they were a 10 seed, and again had to win in Dayton, beat Boise. You get to the actual tournament, you play Florida, you beat them by 2, and then second round you lose to Marquette by 4. So this was a very competitive team, but it just a lot of talent obviously walked out the door, and they haven't ably replaced it. And they're just not very good at any one thing. They are very. There's a lot of size here. There's not a lot of good guard play. They don't do any one thing particularly well. And again, I'm stating the obvious. When you're 2-16 in the league, it's like, well, but I can't. But they've been in games. But here's the crazy thing, Callan. Back in November, I guess it was, they beat number 2 at the time, UConn. Beat them. Just about a week and a half ago, they beat an on-the-bubble Baylor team by 2 in Boulder. They also have a win over UCF. You don't. So I think Grant has got a few things where he can go, look at this, look at this, look at this. And these are legit things that mean you don't have a win over anybody that was ranked number 2 at the time. You don't have you do have a win over Baylor, but you don't have a win over UCF. And they're just kind of hanging around. And what happens is, you don't want your kids like looking to next week in KC or all those things. And you're right. It's about you, but their style of play, they turn it over more than anybody in the league, nearly 16 a game. So what that does, you can fall into that trap and games get sloppy and undisciplined. And you start feeling like we can screw around with these guys and still win. But then you get, and this is kind of just how they play. And I watched the game versus Kansas State that they played on Sunday, and without their leading scorer, we'll get to that in a second, but without their leading scorer for much of that game was like a 7 or 8 point game with like 3 minutes to go. And they'd cut it to that, and Kansas State got up, and then they just started doing what we're talking about. You just get a little sloppy, and you start missing a few shots. They hit a few shots, banking some in. Next thing you know, it's like, well, I guess, fellas, we better lock it back up and try to refocus. So much of this is going to be a mental challenge for Grant and his staff. And you'll know how mature and how locked in your guys are with a game like this tonight. But it can definitely screw you up if you don't take care of your business. And it would make all kinds of news for the wrong reasons. And bump you down a seed line and all that stuff if you don't take care of your biz.
Yeah, and really within the context of the game, I'm hoping that that business taken care of early, because we just came away from a game where you had a sort of healthy looking picture. I don't know what percentage, but compared to where else we've been this season, it was sort of healthy looking. So whether it's this one or on the road Saturday, which this one in your building seems a little bit more attainable as far as what I'm saying here, I hope it's not the most taxing experiences of the regular season, if that makes sense, Chris. I'm hoping Darion and Chance McMillan and some others are not 35-minuting it. I don't know. And maybe there's just no avoiding it. I don't know. Who knows what a game can ask for, but or can call for. But I'm going to be a little greedy and hope that maybe you're also winning comfortably, especially in this one. And you're not really having to go all out and using those guys in that way, because I wanted to ask you about this, just leaving the last game and moving through this week. Are we moving towards being a healthy team? Are we just kind of playing hurt, or what kind of percentage or feel do you have for that?
It certainly seems like you're healthier. I don't know. There just doesn't appear to be any issue with your top 8 guys. I mean, again, if with Darion and Chance, you kind of wondered about that, but they played, in that 33, 35-minute range in Lawrence, Kansas.
Which was kind of strange to me. That sequence from the previous game to that one, I just thought it was interesting because we were talking a lot about like a McMillan's foot, and then it was kind of surprising that Williams missed the previous one, and then I think McCasland spoke maybe 48, 72 hours before tip. Still don't know. Need to see him practice. So it was kind of like, wow. First off, they're here, and then it was like, wow, they played 35 minutes. So I guess they're actually, they're not just here, but they're feeling good. I don't know.
And that's assuming there was no setback of any kind, or somebody didn't have the flu, or you just don't know, man. That's the thing. That's why you start looking at, like, why is a double bye important in the Big 12 tournament? For you right now. Well, the least amount of opportunities you have for something bad to happen, I think the better off you are. So take advantage of freebies and limiting your exposure to trouble. Because you're going to get into enough trouble as it is anyways by some of the games that you do have to play. But yeah, and like this one tonight, what I hear you saying is,
first, today's episode brought to you by Nissan and the Armada Team of the Week, brought to you by our friends at Nissan and the all-new 2025 Nissan Armada. Each week, our Locked On College basketball experts are picking one team that stands apart, from top-seeded stars to unexpected upsets. These guys showcase the strength and power needed to push their team forward. This week's Armada and clear-cut Team of the Week, your Texas Tech Red Raiders, of course, who captured their 7th Big 12 road win of the year in Lawrence, Kansas on Saturday with a heavy-duty effort that gave them their most conference road wins in almost 20 years and only their second ever win at Kansas. You could say the Red Raiders have conquered the road this season with capability and confidence, just like the 2025 Nissan Armada. When it comes to the Nissan Armada, they say go forth and conquer, and that's exactly what Tech has done all year long. It's clear that the Red Raiders are out here ready to conquer the road ahead with confidence, just like you can in the all-new Nissan Armada or any of Nissan's outstanding vehicles. Take the Nissan Armada, Rogue, or Pathfinder and go find your next big adventure. Shop NissanUSA.com.
What I hear you saying is you're going to play it, and it's not senior night, so you've already done those ceremonies, so there's not the emotion of all of that dynamic, and all the families came in for the West Virginia game, and you kind of had all that pomp and circumstance. So this is really about you just trying to stay sharp, but don't screw around with it and play with your food.
Bingo. Because
you can put this game away at certain times, would be my guess. But if you don't, then it's like you continue to put your guys in potentially harm's way, and you got to put more minutes and mileage on the deal, that whole deal. So you can play that game.
Season, man. It's already been a long season.
Exactly. and I will tell you, you will need some juice and some energy on Saturday night in Phoenix or Tempe. That to me will be more of a much tougher test, and I think you may have to stress yourself, and that's not a bad thing, but that's if there's an opportunity tonight to squeeze and to not play with your food and screw around with these guys, like try to put them away. And so also what I hear you saying is, injury-wise, this will be a great game for EY. He wasn't even in Lawrence. I don't know what the status is there. Upper body injury. It would be great if he could suck up some of these minutes. I would look for Kevin Overton to hopefully play a ton of minutes tonight if things go well. You would like for Christian Anderson and Federico, like some of those guys. And you don't want to have to lean on Chance and Darion and Toppin if you can back off of them a little bit. But it's all about how you handle your business. And there will come a time where he's going to call timeout and go, your mind's not right. Like, we talked about this, get it together. And maybe they respond, maybe they don't. But there'll be some times in this game tonight where you'll kind of know where you're at. And are you just trying to get to the end? Or are you locked in and you just come out firing? Because what may happen, say you get up 22-4, you're probably going to be like, yeah, I mean, light work tonight. And then what happens is Colorado makes a few shots. This is what happened in Manhattan on Sunday. They make a few shots, and next thing you know, it's like you don't ever go on one of those other big runs that ultimately just, they just kind of hang around and you're within arm's length. And they hit a couple of threes and you screw it up for a little bit for a 3-minute stretch, and it's a 7-point game with 3 minutes to go, and you're going, well, can't rest anybody tonight. You know what I mean?
No.
So
and then you get the other guys believing, and it's dangerous.
Yes,
it's the real
and they
thing.
have nothing to lose.
Yeah, exactly.
What may hurt them tonight, though, is that there's a name to pay attention to. Julian Hammond is their leading scorer with about 3 or 4 minutes to go in Manhattan on Sunday. Apparently, he'd been having some back issues. He's blocking out there in Manhattan, and he just is like blocking out, and you could just see he comes up lame. He's kind of he's hunched over a little bit, and he immediately goes to the bench and then goes to the locker room, and he comes out in the second half with a T-shirt on. He was done for the day. I wouldn't think that he would be good enough or healthy enough to either play tonight or be super effective. So that could cause you to even and sometimes you look at it and go, oh, dude, that guy's not even playing, because we've been on the other side of this. So, but they'll struggle to score. They will struggle to take care of the basketball. It will be an ugly style, but they will compete. They've got nothing to lose. They'll fight. They've got a lot of size. And so this will come down to how just locked in you are tonight and how disciplined you can be, which is, I'm sure Grant will mention that 100 times to his kids. But you've got a really bad Colorado team but a good head coach. Tad Boyle is a really good head coach, and so they're just a bit undermanned right now.
Curious to see how it goes for the Red Raiders, and we're one step closer to the postseason after this one. The home finale coming up tonight, regular season finale coming up on Saturday. It's Colorado and it's Arizona State. All right, before we get out of here today, Chris, I wanted to pivot and change subjects to a bigger story with some further reaching implications, and that includes for Texas Tech and for the Big 12 Conference. Some moving and shaking, and I guess, at least for the time being, some resolution, it sort of seemed like, in ACC territory, as Florida State, Clemson, some other interested powers have been, bucking for, say, a bigger share of the pie, or bucking for some direction or clarity as to maybe what a number looks like if you were to ever want to buy your way out of a conference, which I hear they also have now as well. No little thing, but wanted to get with you on some of your reaction to what you saw go down out ACC way. Is there a positive resolution here for the ACC and its long-term future? How does it impact the Big 12 Conference? And do you think the realignment waters may truly settle in a way they haven't been for feels like a decade plus now?
Okay, so to answer your question on the realignment, it's going to get really quiet for now. However, the ACC just sealed its fate. The ACC will be no more in 4 to 5 years, and here's why.
Wow.
Yeah, I mean basically there were these lawsuits between Clemson and Florida State toward the ACC. You're holding us hostage. This grant of rights. We can't get out. You were not making enough money. You've got us locked into this long-term media rights deal, and everybody was, kumbaya at one point. And then I think as Big Ten and SEC were doing their thing, some of the blue bloods started to squawk and make life difficult. So here's what's happened, essentially, in a nutshell, is the ACC basically is going to do what the Big 12 was doing years ago. And guess what? It ended up not working very well, because then everybody got pissy and moved on and did their own thing. Nebraska left, Arkansas left, ultimately Texas left, and all that. And so it's revenue distribution, but it's uneven. And so what the ACC has basically said is, over the next 5 years, we're going to decrease how much it costs you to leave our league by $18 million every year that we go by. Meaning, in 2030, it will cost one of these institutions $75 million to leave. And you say to yourself, God, there's no way. That's just too much money. Dude, A&M just fired their head football coach for the same amount and paid him to go away. It can happen. Private equity, capital, firms, somebody can help make that happen if that's what what they want to do. So, and in the meantime, and this is the interesting part, this is a can of worms, and I'm shocked. I think they had no choice. But this is a can of worms that they've just opened up. And so what they're going to do is basically the teams that have more viewership can make quite a bit more money.
Yep.
And so they can appease the blue bloods, and they can get, 15 to 20 more a year than the Boston Colleges or the NC States or who Virginia Techs or whatever. So if you're Miami or if you're Clemson, if you're Florida State, and you've got a lot of people paying attention and watching, you will be compensated for that. This is a model you can't put the toothpaste back in the tube. I think they've opened up Pandora's box a little bit. I think if I'm Ohio State going, hold on, time out. So you're telling me we bring in all these eyeballs and viewers and you're paying Rutgers the same as us? No, sir. That's just not, we're not doing that. So I think
really, you think the leagues that are not.
Oh, I think this is something, this is Pandora's box, man. Like
I'm just naive. I've been thinking like, the ACC is just on the brink of extinction, so they're in their own category. But when I'm looking at Big Ten and SEC, we're healthy, we're vibrant, we're making money, we're more well-financed than the kingdom of God. I'm thinking we've already learned our lesson from the Big 12 conference. It didn't go well over there.
Yeah,
You're shaking your head, Chris.
Yeah, I mean, like if you're like, this is, so we're clear. And we already knew there was going to be a change in the landscape. And so we can localize this because I think if you're Texas Tech or the Big 12, you're not real sure what life is going to look like in 4 to 5 years because there will be another massive change. And like the whole super conference thing, the whole, have and have not thing, it's going to break apart even more. And
is it a revenue sharing fracture or where? What do you think?
No, it's just I don't think that if you're the SEC, you can look at yourself in the mirror and go, how in the world is Mississippi State making as much as the rest of us? How are we paying Vanderbilt? Because I mean, let's just be honest. If you could pay Clemson or Florida State versus Vanderbilt or Mississippi State, I'm just picking on those two. Which one is worth more or getting more viewers or more of a blue blood, right? It's a no-brainer, okay? And I don't know really how you rank the Big 12, but this is just going to be a massive dynamic. But here's what's crazy. Think about some of these things in the meantime. So we can talk about, further realignment. I think it's going to get quiet on that front for a bit, but then as 28, 29, and 30 and all the media rights deals come up, and then you can get out of leagues for a much cheaper and all that stuff. Who knows how this thing will look? But super conference or a NFL model, and is that 30? Is that 40? Is that 50? Is like, where do we land on? But in the meantime, let's think about these things. I can make more based on viewership. So if I'm an ACC school, you're telling me, because I mean, is 6 o'clock prime time going to get more viewers, or an 11 a.m. game on, I mean, you see, like TV based on time slots can dictate,
sure,
large in part, how the viewers are allotted. That's tricky.
1,000%. Yeah.
If I'm one of these schools, it may cause me to like say, man, we need to beef up our non-conference schedule, more viewers. Like let's not. What can we get that would be attractive to television? And so there's all kinds of little dynamics here that I think are fascinating. But this is something this is Pandora's box. It's been opened up, and it's something that I think will be in play as we reconvene. What it means for the Big 12, I don't know, but I don't know if it will be good for everybody involved. I'll just say that. Texas Tech may be in a much, much, much better spot than, say, somebody like a Cincinnati, or I think your Texas Techs, maybe an Oklahoma State, like a BYU. I'd be curious about maybe a Kansas, depending on. And again, we're off into the distance. Some of those you may be in good shape, but like your Houstons, your Cincinnatis, your UCFs, if there's another. I don't know, man. I don't know. Again, not my problem, and I'd
may
be willing
even
to
go
bet.
further than that, Chris. I mean, it may not be some of the former Group of Five additions either, because I know we've talked about, hey, it's not every member of the Big 12 Conference, even among some of the Pac-12 defections or the remaining Hateful Eight. It's not every one of those members that's going to be in full revenue sharing mode. That impacts, I'm sure, the rosters you're putting together, competitive quality, television rating. I mean, it all just kind of rolls into a snowball, right? So I don't know what to expect, but
and like you look at I could foresee a lot of different stories and conversations and theories. Like, is Brett Yormark even going to be your commissioner around this time frame? I mean, this is 5 years down the road. Okay, 4 to 5 years down the road. I would like to hope so. I would certainly love him, him having our best interest in mind as a lot of this stuff gets negotiated and maneuvered around. But it's everything from, we're breaking it apart. This is the group that's going along with, and then we're going to have this group that just didn't make the cut. And then what does all that look like? Or is it like, hey, these blue bloods could get absorbed by some of these other leagues, and then maybe if you're the Big 12, you're like, okay, Virginia Tech, okay, Georgia Tech, okay, Louisville, okay, NC State, let's party. Hey, Pitt, we already got West Virginia up there. You know what I mean? Yeah. So I don't know. I'm not smart enough to really know what's real and what's not. But I'm telling you, this is a massive move here. It basically, if you're like a Boston College, you've probably agreed to this and said, yeah, don't sue us. We'll agree to all this. That's fine if they get more money. We still get to be in a Power 4 league for now. This is the price of a short-term Band-Aid kicking the can down the road, but there's major movement and landscape changing stuff that is on the cusp. What does all that look like? I'm not real sure.
All right. So let's not bury realignment yet. Keep the headstone at the chiseling factory, which is where they come from, chiseling factories. We've all got one of those in our area. It sounds like I don't have to necessarily put it on the back burner just yet. This is comforting because this has been one of those security blankets for about a decade and a half running, Chris. Just one of those friendly, old, comfortable, of a topic that you can put on anytime and it always feels good.
And the next moves could be the biggest.
The moves to end them all, to end all moves.
Yeah, I mean, because you've maneuvered, you've shifted.
Synchronicity, dude. That's
yeah. You've dwindled. Once where it was a Power 5 league, and now we only have the 4 of them, and maybe we get down to 2 or 3, or I don't know, man. But again, this is, I thought, fairly massive in scope and what it will mean again down the line. But right now it calms everybody down, chills everybody out. But there's a major shift looming. And what does that mean for Texas Tech in the Big 12? I don't know, but it will certainly mean something. I can tell you that.
I think that means time resets. We begin anew. Went from like BC to AD to PCFE, post-college football expansion. I don't know, but something new starts. Maybe we just fold in on ourselves like a dying star. I think that's what happened to Atlantis. Their college football organizations began to consolidate, and then all of a sudden they're under the sea. So, I mean, like earth-shattering kind of stuff may be coming our way. All right. I'm glad I asked you because I wasn't viewing it in that kind of context, to be honest with you. So I'm glad I asked you because now I feel like I got a proper frame of what's happening. Would love to hear from those who are in the business also, or in the hobby of projecting the future. It's always something I love discussing with viewers and listeners or Matador mobsters. The future of realignment, the topic that never cools. All right, Chris, appreciate the time as always, man. Looking forward to Red Raiders and Buffaloes. We got hoops coming up from United Supermarkets Arena, and we'll chop it up on the other side. We'll see you then.
It sounds good. Hope to see everybody at the USA one last time tonight. It's crazy that I'm saying that. Look, there's still so much more left to do, but yeah, you won't show up at this building anymore for maybe we can fast forward in like maybe 3 or 4 weeks from now, we can have like a big climb the ladder, cut the net ceremony for some big doings there.
Welcome home
whatever
party.
that may not look. Yes. So maybe we can reconvene down the line.
Maybe we'll drive a few limousines around the Jones Stadium turf. I'm just spitballing. Remember once upon a time?
I do. And not many around here remember that, because that's like, you got to look way off in the distance.
You got to look a little ways back.
You got to squint. Jones AT&T looked quite a bit different back then.
And we got nicer cars now too.
But yes, we do. Yes, we do.
Tunnel. I think that's why they kept those tunnels actually intact for when we need that to celebrate.
1993.
93.
Yes, there you go. That's Spring of 93. It's been a minute. So yes,
let's do it again. I'm ready.
I'm all about it.
We just about ripped her off a few years back, and somehow, some way, we have stumbled, rumbled, bumbled, fumbled our way through a couple of head coaches, couple of weird transitions, and you're back to feeling like you got a dog that will hunt in March all of a sudden, and maybe one of the best hunting dogs that you've had in your program's history. So exciting times. That's why you want to make sure you're subscribed on YouTube or anywhere you get podcasts so you never miss an episode, as it'll be a wild March here on Locked On Texas Tech. Thanks as always for being out there. Shout out to the Everydayers and the Matador Mob. If you're interested in becoming a Matador Mob insider, hit the show notes, find a link to a free 14-day trial. That's your direct line to Chris and myself with one-on-one text sent straight to your phone. For Chris, I'm Casey. Thanks as always for the time, and we hope to see you back for the next round on Locked On Texas Tech.